The Ancients' World. Chapter 241, Journey to the Barony of James 11. I pump my hips into her over and over again, never letting up. Her expression is one of pure pleasure. I lift her body as I fall back, and now she is on top. I'm bouncing her up and down with the thrusting of my hips. I watch her boobs jiggle and her head flop around from the aggressive movement. The pressure is building in the base of my rod, and this will be my final load for the night. I want to prolong it, so I use all my willpower to hold it in. My rod thickens and lengthens as I hold it, and Sally releases long moans and short squeals from the actions. I lean up and hold her in my arms as I bury my face in her breasts. I'm still thrusting my hips from below her, but now I'm lifting and shoving her down. She is constantly moaning, and the sounds of our smacking bodies fill the tent and woods surrounding us. She wraps her arms around my head and pushes me deeper into her breasts. I can't hold back any longer, so I thrust hard and push her down on my rod hard. I release my final load as it explodes in her deepest parts. She lets out incoherent screams and moans. Once the final drop fills her, I slowly lift her off me, and a small pop is heard as I fully exit her. I lay down on the furs with her, still buried in her breasts. I'm so exhausted I'm going to sleep like a log tonight. My words are barely audible as I'm still buried in her breasts. She runs her fingers through my hair and hums in agreement. That was the first time I was rough with her. I'm sorry if I hurt you, I kinda lost control there. She lifts my head out of her breasts, and she leans her face to mine. Our lips soon meet, and we have a slow and soft kiss. We finish our kiss, and Sally pushes me back into her breasts as she wraps her legs around my waist. I can feel her pussy against my defined abs. That's okay, I liked it. You were rough, you still made sure not to hurt me. It's hard not to feel good when you penetrate me so deeply, reaching the absolute deepest parts of me over and over. It makes me stupid, and my head spin. Her voice drifts off into tiredness, and I soon follow her. After a minute or so, we are both asleep. I have dreams of the night we shared, something that doesn't happen often. While Sarah and Sally sleep the night away, there is an emergency meeting for the Dryads. They are meeting to discuss the course of action needed for the upcoming war. There are plenty of important Dryads at this meeting, including Princess Eleanor. She is listening to the conversations and learning all she can learn about battle and planning. She is to inherit the kingdom of the Dryads from her father soon. King Florihard is Eleanor's father. It's incredibly late in the night in the Dryad Kingdom, but that doesn't stop this important meeting. I watch as father talks to many of our old generals. The times have changed so much, and we are racing to catch up. If you'd ask me, I'd say we are doing a good job. However, we aren't meeting the standards set by our highest-ranking general. General Norrell, one of the forefront authorities on war technology during our times. However, what he knew is now vastly outdated. He is catching up fast, though. Zenith has been a great help in providing technology for us and teaching us what we've missed. I suggest we have some of their best engineers come and teach us. Norrell is trying to convince my father to ask for more help. The people of Zenith have been very helpful and understanding. Even returning the horn of the forest to us. I understand asking them for help, but we have already asked a lot of them. I don't want to overstep our bounds with our new allies. We'll need their help in the war against Belvia. My father is worried that we'll end up taking too much from Zenith, and they'll want to leave the alliance they have with us. I can see the points of both sides, but if we are going to win this war, we have to ask more of Zenith, even if it'll eventually cost us our alliance with them. It's a sacrifice we have to be willing to make. One that has a possibility of happening. As much as I want to voice my opinions, I shouldn't. I'm inheriting the kingdom from my father, but this is something I should leave to the more experienced officials. Florihard, my king. Zenith has openly declared multiple times that they will help us whenever we need it. I don't think those are empty words. They have given us 100% of their effort thus far, and I don't see them changing that. Norrell counters my father's point. I see my father rub his temples and sigh deeply. The stress of this weighs on all of us. Right after returning to the world, we are going to war with the country that imprisoned us. Many would call this reckless and crazy, and I'd agree. The vengeance in our hearts can't be quelled without the blood of Belvia, so we are going to be reckless. Fine, Norrell, send the messages first light. Hopefully, King Jackson will continue to help us. King Jackson is rather famous around Gaia. His kingdom has Amelia Zirn as a noble. Slayer Zirn's mother. I wonder if King Jackson joined into an alliance with us because of what Slayer Zirn did. He freed our people after several centuries locked away. Should we open communications tomorrow for other kingdoms looking to leave the coalition? Since many of them want to leave the coalition and church, wouldn't it be better to speak to them as we did, Zenith? I can't hold my questions and concerns in. I look around the room and see several curious looks at my question. It can allow us to have more allies, now and in the future. So far, we've only been talking to Zenith. Other kingdoms have tried to communicate with us, but we've been cutting them off. Only speaking and communicating with Zenith. I like your idea, Princess. However, with our current situation and knowledge, we can't determine friend from foe. We are too far behind in the world to tell the difference anymore. That's why we only have one ally, because we know their intentions are pure. Norrell brings up a good point, and while I'd love to have more than one ally when I become queen, this isn't something I can argue right now. One kingdom that might be willing to help, the kingdom of the fairies, was freed by Slayer Zirn just as we were. If anyone understands our situation, it's the fairies. I might as well bring it up. How about we try to talk to the fairies? They were in the same situation as us not long ago, but they are now thriving in this world. They might even be more willing to work with us due to being freed the same way. Slayer Zirn has large connections with Zenith and the fairies. Why not use that? Many look at each other as I finish speaking. I look at my father and see a proud look on his face. I look at Norrell and see him contemplating the idea. See it done, Norrell. Her idea has many merits to it, and there is no harm in talking to the fairy kingdom. Good job, Ella, your mother would be proud. My father orders Norrell to do it before he can find a counter-argument. Norrell nods his head, and the meeting finishes on that note. Everyone leaves except my father and me. You did a good job today. You'll be a great queen when it's your time. My father stands and places his hand on my head. He looks down with a smile and nods before leaving himself. I look around the empty room and sigh. This will eventually all be mine, and it's in my best interests and the kingdom's best interests to form these alliances now and make them stronger before I become queen. As much as I agree with going to war with Belvia, I think we could have waited a little while to rebuild ourselves. My father and his closest allies are thirsty for blood, so their judgment is compromised. I should try and get some sleep tonight. Tomorrow is a big day. I exit the meeting room and head towards my room. Chapter 242, The City of James I. I wake up as the heat rises in the tent. I sit up with beads of sweat running down my chest and back. Sally groans in protest at the movement. I look down as we are both naked, and Sally's clothes are in random places inside the tent. There are a certain odor thanks to neither of us having a shower or bath recently. I crawl out of the tent, still naked, and look at the river we set up right next to. The water is probably very cold, but it won't affect me due to my stats. I slowly walk into the calm flow and go up to my neck. I stretch out my limbs as I feel the sweat leave my body from the hot morning. I look towards the sun, and it's beating down on everything with its sunshine. I take a breath and dive into the water. I move through the water with agility. I can hold my breath for an extremely long time due to my high stats. I look around while under the clear water and see fish and other aquatic life. I decide to resurface, and I slowly breach the water. Letting the breath out and running my fingers through my dark hair, so they don't hang in my eyes. I look towards the bank and see Sally still hasn't gotten up yet. I make my way out of the water, and I sit my nude body on a warm boulder heated by the sun, a natural way to dry off. I close my eyes and tilt my body towards the sun. Only a couple of minutes pass until I hear movement coming out of the tent. I turn my head and open my eyes and see Sally exit the tent with only her panties on. She is covering her breasts with both her hands. Someone's finally up. How did you sleep? She smiles as she walks over to join me. I equip my underwear and leather pants as she approaches since I'm dry now. I'm sore. I don't know if I should be proud of myself or worried that I hurt her. Don't worry. You didn't hurt me. It's just when you are the size you are. It hurt the next day if we were rough. I nod my head and feel bad. I shouldn't have been so rough with her, and now she is the one hurting because of it. She finally makes it over and sits on my lap. I take it you dived into the river for a bit. I nod my head, and she hums to herself. I watch her stand up and slide her underwear off. Showing me everything, she tosses me her underwear. Hand on to those for me. I watch her walk into the river and begin doing what I did. I look at the underwear and can't help but have a rise in temperature even more than when I watched her take them off. I don't know why. It's the first time I've ever held a girl's panties before. Ones that I know have been used recently. I put it out of my mind and hang on to them as she continues to swim and clean herself. She dives into the water and rises a few seconds later. Her long golden hair clinging to her body. She runs her fingers through her hair and fixes it. She slowly walks out of the river, and I see the water drip off her nude form. Her nipples are pointy, and she sees me staring. Sorry. I quickly apologize. However, a devious grin spreads across her face. She slowly makes her approach. Once in front of me, she runs her fingernails along my scalp. She moves even closer and sits on my lap, completely water and naked. I don't mind either. The sun will take care of the wetness. On the other hand, the nudeness doesn't seem like it'll have a simple solution like that. She has both her hands on the back of my head, and she is staring into my eyes. You don't have to be sorry for looking at me. I like it when you do. You're the only one that is allowed to seem like this. She presses her perky breasts against my chest, and I feel her nipples press into my skin. Besides, these are the few times I don't see the always calm and serious you. The shy you is something that I love to see when I get a chance. Her deep blue-green eyes stare into my hazel ones. She slowly leans her face into mine. However, she takes her underwear out of my hand. She stands up and looks at me with a grin. That's the first time she has teased me in such a way. That's for making me this sore. I suppose I deserve that. I sigh and stand up. We walk back to the tent, and I help Sally get her clothes out of the tent. While she puts them on, I take the tent down and store everything in my inventory. It's time we gotta move on. Once Sally is fully dressed, she looks at me and nods her head. I toggle my massive golden wings on, and I kneel so she can climb on. Once secured, I blast off the ground and continue heading towards the Barony of James. As Sarah and Sally still have half a day left of travel until they reach the city of James. The sister of Sarah is already there and is waking up herself. The city of James is just starting to wake up themselves and make their ways to work. There are player-owned and ran shops opening up. They range from food to clothes, as well as weapon and armor shops. Many players have settled into their new lives. Some taking active roles in the military to gain strength from the rewards. Others have taken on the modest life of being a producer. I stretch my limbs out as I sit up in the comfortable bed. Emerald meows in frustration as I begin to wake her. I stand up from the bed and head towards the bathroom. I have a room with a private bathroom, which I think is splendid. I undress, and I turn the magical tub on. It quickly fills with water that is good and hot. I dip my toe in, and it's the perfect amount of hot. I step inside and sink my dirty body in. It's been weeks since the last time I took a bath. The magically enchanted water and tub will ensure I get cleaned up and stay clean for the next few days. The pattering of little paws can be heard, and I look towards the door to see Emerald poke her head through the door. The white tiger cub could use a good cleaning too. I wave for her to come over, and she does. I pick her up as she stands by the tub, and I bring her in. She protests greatly at first but gives in as the magical water cleans her and makes her relax. Not so bad now, is it? She lets a mew out in response. I chuckle to myself as I close my eyes and scratch her head. As much as I want to stay in the bath for the whole day, I have things to do. I spend around 30 minutes in the bath. Emerald got out around 15 minutes ago. I sigh to myself, knowing that it's time to get out. I stand up from the tub, and I head to the front of it to drain it. I grab a towel from the towel rack as I exit the bathroom. I head towards the bed as I wrap myself with the warm towel. I sit down and plop my back onto the bed. The first thing I should do is ask the right people for information. The best people to ask are the elderly. They've been around the longest. I learned that from Sarah. He taught me a lot on the trip back to the continent. As my thoughts drift to my little brother, I can't help the empty feeling in my heart. It's been so long since I've seen him, and it's been so long since I've seen any of my family. Sarah holds a special place in my heart, always has. I miss you, little bro. Hopefully, one day soon, I'll be able to see him again. Emerald jumps up on the bed and lays down next to my head. She is releasing deep purrs. You'd love Sarah. I wouldn't have met you if it weren't for him. If he didn't send me to get the legendary class, I wouldn't have come across Emerald. No sense in waiting any longer. I finish drying off and equip my gear. Chapter 243, The City of James 2. I exit the inn and take in the sights of the buildings and people around me. Emerald looks on with curiosity as people pass us and give surprised looks. Emerald is a tamed magical beast, a legacy grade 1 at that. So it makes sense that attention will be on her. I've come across great gear in my travels since leaving Sarah. My most prized item is my sword. As the holder of the legendary class Battle Mind, the skills I have are crazy, and I needed a strong sword to complement it. My sword's name is the Heart's Needle. It's perfect for the duelist nature of Battle Mind. The city of James isn't nearly the same size as a capital city. The actual design is nice, though. It's a Victorian style. The archways and protruding edges give the city a sophisticated look. I'm sure there is only a handful of people that knows where the money for all this comes from. The fact that the church isn't on top of this severe problem says a lot. There probably isn't a criminal underworld they don't know about, and they still don't do anything. I'm seeing more and more reasons why people of Gaia have lost faith in the church. The new pope is going to be determined by the process of an event for players. Maybe that'll be a good chance for change, but I have a sick feeling in my stomach when I think about that. I'm sure a politician from the earth will worm their way in. I'm sure that there are women who will compete for the spot, and I wonder what'll happen if that does occur. Hey, pretty little girl. My thoughts are interrupted by the voice of a male. I've come across this many times, especially after I got Emerald. He'll either demand I do something to please him or demand I hand over Emerald. I kill men who try this. I have become numb to taking life. You would consider that monstrous, but I've learned that it's required to thrive here on Gaia. I turn and look at the man. He has some of his friends with him. How about you come with us, and we'll have a nice conversation. After we are done with that, we can talk about you giving me that magical beast. He actually hit both of the most common topics. I have a rule when this happens. Don't talk. Just kill. I open my backpack and place Emerald in it. I see them get disappointed looks on their faces. The fact we are in the middle of the road doesn't bother me. It's going to be stained with blood. I draw the Heart's Needle, and I can't help enjoying the thought of killing these scum. Before they can say anything else, I dash forward before any of them can reach. and I do several jabs with the tip of my blade, puncturing all their vital organs. Many fall to the ground choking on their own blood, bleeding out. I sheath the heart's needle and quickly leave the scene of the crime. Some people witnessed it, but these guys aren't important enough to chase after me for it. I walk down the street and make several turns. Now no longer near the site. I stop and pull Emerald out of the backpack and place her in her favorite spot. Right now, I'm in the wealthy district. That's why my in-room had a private bathroom and great furnishings. My next destination is the poor district, and more specifically the elderly in the poor community. One of the best pieces of advice I've gotten from Sarah is asking the old for information. They are a wealth of knowledge you can't find at the library. These communities have helped me greatly in the past. I navigate the roads and follow the decay from the upper class to the lower class in the city. The parts of the city I came from are upkept and taken care of. These are now looking like rotten buildings. No longer made of stone, but instead made of wood, falling apart. The people are now wearing dirty clothes and rags. All look sick and hungry. It makes me want to help them, but I'm already here on an important mission. I can't deviate from this quest to try and save so many people. I can't save hundreds of thousands on my own like this. So it's better not to try. I look down the current road I'm traveling, and I see many displaced people. Displaced isn't the right word. Abandoned is more fitting. Forgotten by society, tossed away like lepers. I look around at the people as I calmly walk the streets. Most don't look older than 30. The elderly are probably wiped out at this point if I can't see them with the regular people. Disease, famine, or neglect has caused most of them to die. I continue to look, and I eventually see a small group of people over 50 talking to one another. Sitting on the curbs or in chairs. I make my way up to them, and as I do, they quiet down. They eye me up and down as if I'm a possible threat. I take no offense. They have every way to suspect me of that. I just murdered a group of me that tried to take advantage of me. What do you want? One of the older women decides to be the first to speak. Asking for information is never simple with the old on Gaia. You have to give something to get something, which is easy in my case. I've made a lot of gold in my travels, and that's the poor and old's favorite thing. I pull a bag of gold out of my inventory, about 50 pieces. I shake it, and that gains their attention. I can see their eyes turn to the shape of gold coins in an almost comical way. I need information. I'll give you guys this bag of gold to split if you can provide me with said information. No names, of course. I explain the terms, and I can see the desire for all the gold to go to themselves only in each of their eyes. This causes a good competition for me. It makes them more willing to open up and tell me the things I need to know. Many look at each other ready for the challenge. My words that the gold gets split must have fallen on deaf ears. Well? Tell us, Missy. What is it you wish to know? This time an older man, this an entirely bald head, speaks up. Trying to rush the information out of me. I can't let them know I'm looking for information on the James family. Their fear of them will outweigh the worth of gold I'm holding in my hands. How I need to broach this is in a way that isn't directly connected to the James family. An obscure connection, they have their hands in everything. So an illegal black market for goods would be a good place to start. Once there, I can ask some people who are of lower morales for the real answers. Do any of you know where I can pick up aftermarket goods? They get the meaning behind my question. They look between each other in contemplation if they should tell. I'm glad I didn't ask about the James family. They would have told me to scram and never show my face around here again, and after about 15 seconds of pure silence, someone decides to speak up. This person is the same woman who asked me what I wanted. She adopts a cautious expression as she begins to explain. What you need to do is speak to Saul in the Adventurers Guild. He is an old veteran. He'll tell you the meeting places and times of the aftermarket goods. The location and times have to be switched up, so the church isn't too wise about what's going on so. She holds out her hand as if demanding the payment. I look between the rest of the little group, and none of them have anything of value to offer. I place the bag of gold in her hands, and she smiles at me with a mouth devoid of teeth. I say my thanks and turn around and leave. I make my way out of the poorer district and head towards the Adventurers Guild. This Saul man will be a small problem, I'm sure. He could be one of those loyal henchmen that don't take bribes, but you never know, I might luck out. Sarcasm. No way in hell this will be easy. He'll probably ask me to do something of an illegal nature for him before he tells me anything. Like assassinate someone, or sell my body. If it's the second one, I'll just kill him and search his body and home for the information I need. That will cause me to be an enemy of the Adventurers Guild for a little while, but it's nothing I can't handle. It'll be a worthy sacrifice. I hate the Adventurers Guild, after all. Chapter 244, The City of James 3. I flap my wings to keep the current max speed up. Sally and I have been traveling for the majority of the morning at this point, and I can see a nice-sized city off in the distance. We're arriving slightly sooner than I thought we would. That's the city. Sally's voice is shallow and distant. Remembering the place that took away everything from her. She has returned to pay back all that pain and suffering this place has caused throughout her life. Bring us down, please. I need a minute. I nod my head, and I bring us down fast. I land gently after leveling out, and Sally gets off my back and hunches over. She begins to take deep breaths and is on the edge of puking. I place my hand on her shoulder in an attempt to comfort her, but it was a bad move. Don't touch me! She screams as she shoves my arm away. I take a step back, giving her the space she needs. She proceeds to fall to one knee, and tears start to fall from her eyes. I toggle my wings off and walk over to a nearby log. I sit down and watch as she works through her pain and memories of this place. I'll be here if she needs me, but right now, I don't think that being around a man is something she wants. I take my HUD out of my inventory and place it over my head and the top half of my face. She stares at the ground as the tears in her eyes fall. As if in shock that she's crying. She must have never expected a breakdown upon seeing the city. I don't want to put her through this again, and she'll probably have a similar reaction when we actually make it to the James property. A place she was tortured and kept. A fortress that resembled hell. I pull up the 2 quests to pass the time. Fighting the disease. Description: Sally wishes to find and root out all the evil and corrupted people tied to the James Barony. Objective 1: Once in the land held by the James Barony, try and find connections that the Barony has to other slave traders. In progress. Objective 2: Kill or imprison all people that you find out about. In progress. Difficulty: Legendary. Rewards: Unknown. Note: this quest is directly tied to Sally's past and meets the same condition of being at the Legendary in difficulty. Sally's past. Description: help Sally in her quest for vengeance against all the men that tortured and sexually assaulted her growing up. Help her punish the Elven Kingdom for their ways. Objective 1: when the time comes, Sally will ask you for your direct help in this matter. Completed. Objective 2: once everything is done with your quest involving the Dryads, ask Sally what the first step in her revenge is. Completed. Objective 3: head to the Barony of James in the Kingdom of Pleer. In progress. Rewards: Unknown. Difficulty: Legendary. Note: the great difficulty of this quest is the goals that Sally has set in revenge. If they weren't so great, then the difficulty wouldn't be so high. The opportunity to take down an entire slave empire and help Sally simultaneously seems too good to be true. I'm betting I'll have to make hard decisions down the road, ones that I won't like. I rub my forehead a little bit and pinch the bridge of my nose. I have a slight headache. It's from all the planning and traveling, never taking a long break. Blarg. I look up from the ground, and I see Sally couldn't hold it in any longer. She stares at the puke on the ground with vivid hate, as if hating feeling a weakness like this. Once we step foot in the city, Objective 3 of Sally's past will be completed, and a new objective will be added. Blarg. Huff. Huff. Sally pukes again and takes deep breaths trying to calm herself. She's having a panic attack. However, I can't help her right now. If I get close, that overwhelming fear of men would lash out just as it did earlier. I can only watch as she struggles to regain composure. I hate seeing her like this, watching her suffer as I can't do anything to help her. When she is ready, she'll come over and talk. As Sarah and Sally are outside the city a few miles away, Haley is inside the city at the Adventurers Guild, trying to contact this Saul person. However, no matter how long she waits, and looks around, no one by the name of Saul comes or leaves the guild hall. The Adventurers Guild has many guild halls all over Gaia, and many more of them are run by corrupt men or women. The guild hall in the city of James is no exception to this. Haley notices the longer she is hanging around, the less welcoming the feeling around the guild hall she's getting. I look around this room while in my corner booth. I chose this booth so I wouldn't have my back to anyone. The old adventuring veteran Saul hasn't come into the guild hall yet. It's only been young and middle-aged men and women. No one matching description is anywhere in the guild hall. Whoever you're waiting for is not going to show. It's been 6 hours since you entered the guild hall. I suggest you stop wasting space and leave. A male voice breaks out from the bar. A drunk adventurer looks over at me as he says that. No one adds to the topic he's raised. They're all minding their own business and keeping out of the growing problem. I look at the guy more closely, and he's much drunker than I thought. His face is pink, and his blinking is uncoordinated. He smashes some peanuts with the bottom of his mug and tosses them into his mouth. I close my eyes and ignore him. He slams his fist on the table in anger at my lack of care for what he has to say. Didn't you hear me, bitch? I said leave. He's going to have to do worse than call me a bitch. He stomps over to my booth and smashes his fist on it, denting the metal top of it. I open my eyes and look up to see a disgusting grin. I swear if he says anything about paying him back for my disrespect with my body. His head is coming off his shoulders. Why don't you pay? I stand up in a burst of speed and kick him in the chest before I land. He flies across the guild as blood pours out of his mouth. He lands on some empty tables and chokes a couple of times before dying. I'm not going to tolerate such disrespect. Everyone in the guild continues to ignore the commotion, and after a couple of seconds, I hear clapping coming from upstairs. I turn my attention to the clapping, and it's an older man with a balding head. He has some pretty good gear on, and I have a feeling this might be the man I'm looking for. Hiding up on the second floor, where it's restricted to A-class adventurers and higher. I was wondering when something would finally happen. Come up here so we can talk. He must have been looking for a reason to give me the time of day. Now that he's witnessed some strength, he sees an opportunity for something. What that is, I don't know yet. I make my way up the stairs and there is only a handful of people up here. I pass through a magic barrier that prevents any sounds from up here reaching the floors below. I'm Saul, and some of my little birds are telling me that you're looking for me. I turn towards the voice and he's sitting at the private bar up here. He waves me over to join him. I walk over and take a seat on the bar stool next to him. Everything has a price, remember that. He's sure up front about his beliefs. He nods for me to start talking, and I take that as a sign that anything said up here stays up here. I'm looking for a way into the aftermarket areas. I don't want to say black market, but that's basically it. The black market here in the city of James will get me into contact with the people with the necessary information for my mission. They'll have dirt and weaknesses I can use to take the James family out for good. While that might hurt their slave business, I'll just kill anyone I come into contact with that deals in that shit. Save the world from another monster. Chapter 245, The City of James 4. I watch Sally closely. She is doing a little better now. She isn't hyperventilating and puking anymore. We've been here for about 30 minutes now. I don't know if she will be okay after coming back here, but I know she isn't going to give up. She stands up on wobbly knees and whips her chin, trying to get the saliva and puke off. You want my help? I see her look at me and her eyes are very red. She shakes her head in nervousness and looks away in shame. I'm not going to force my help, and if she isn't comfortable being around me right now, that's fine too. After all she has been through in these areas. It makes sense that her fear of being hurt by men is so strong. I'm not going to demand that I be put above them, be treated better despite her fears. I'm not going to ignore her fears cause it makes me feel bad. It does hurt she sees me like that right now, but sometimes things get hard. If she needs to do that, then she has that right. I'm sorry you had to see that. She lifts her head, and her voice is dry and cracking. She's lost a lot of fluid from puking and has probably burned her throat a little from stomach acids. She walks over to me while trying not to stumble. I don't reach out as she approaches. She doesn't need that fear. It's okay, let's get a move on. The city is only a couple of miles ahead of us. We'll get some food and water. I'm betting there are shops run by new people just like Zenith. I try to brighten her mood with the thought of having the same delicious food we had in Zenith made by players. My efforts work a little. She gives a small smile. It quickly fades, and she doesn't have a happy expression anymore. I turn my back to her and start walking towards the city, but before I can get out of arm's length, I feel a tug on the bottom of my leather chest piece from behind. I stop and turn to Sally. She looks at me with a depressed look. The most I've seen. I'm sorry I did that. She is referring to her reaction to trying to comfort her. She doesn't need to be sorry for that. I don't hold anything against her. Come on, say something. Her voice is cracking up, and I see tears well in the corner of her eyes. She must think I'm upset with her. I fully turn my body towards her, and I smile. It's okay, Sally. You're okay, and I'm okay. It was a perfectly acceptable action due to the circumstances. I hate for sounding a little political, but I don't want to upset her further. She has a small smile and wipes the forming tears away. She lets go of my leather chest piece. She looks like she wants a hug, but she is hesitating. It's from being here, near the worst place she's ever been. I step away and turn around. Let's go. My voice is confident and serious. We are here, and it's Sally's turn for vengeance. While Sarah and Sally walk the little bit of distance to the city of James, the city owners are having a private meeting. The James family is on their private property. There are many males in the James family. Sons of the original torturer and abuser of Sally, the one who took her purity. His spawn are gathered in a room. Some are fat and ugly like the father was, and others inherited beauty from the various concubines he had. The one that is planning to betray her family is here too, and she is wearing the best poker face you'd ever see. My brothers are having more and more concerns about a possible visit from Slayer Zirn. Just today, a group of men was slaughtered in the street. Kelly, what are the reports from the guards in the city? Any witnesses to the event come forward. Renner James, my second oldest brother, decides to get right down to the details. If there was anyone I need to be worried about, it's him. He is more intelligent and shrewd than any of my other brothers. In the end, all of them will be dead. I'll be damned to hell for fratricide. Some sacrifices need to be made, though. I clear my throat as I pick up the paper regarding any reports on the earlier incident. It appears that a group of men was harassing a woman, only for all of them to be killed. No description of the woman has been given, only that she had a magical beast with her. There aren't any reports on the description. An individual female killed the group. She was wearing a hood. The only defining characteristic was the magical beast she was traveling with. Many of my brothers snot at the thought of a female doing this to a male. They really are the worst kind of animals. Some have even tried to do things to me in the past, but let's just a dagger pointed at their manhood made them back off. Issue a bounty on the woman, only give it to those in the underworld, though. Offer them a slave of their choosing. It takes all the power in my mind to not react when those words are said by my third oldest and ugliest brother, a true spawn between our father and a troll. I'm lucky I inherited my mother's beauty. Many nod their heads in agreement, and the meeting moves forward. The meeting jumps to another topic, and it's regarding funding to the slave market. Once I usurp control, all of this is coming to an end. We need some financing for bribes at the borders near the eastern border. The kingdom of T.A.W is trying to stop their citizens from being taken here and made slaves. I wouldn't be surprised if the capital catches on to our little business here. So the more money for bribes, the better. Renner begins to talk about how T.A.W is giving us trouble. That's thanks to me. I tipped their knight commander off. So far, it hasn't resulted in much, but some of their citizens have been freed before they could be forever lost. Kelly, I want to talk to you privately. Everyone else, you're dismissed. Renner ends the meeting, and my brothers leave. I look at Renner as he stares at me from across the table, trying to discern something from my body language and posture. He'll get nothing. Out of everyone in our family, I'm the only one who takes keeping secrets seriously. He'll never find out what I'm up to. What are your thoughts on the possibility that Slayer Zirn is coming here with Salyandra Orvalo? What a strange question. It's completely irrelevant to anything that he might suspect me of. What's he playing at? I think he is coming here, Renner. He raises his eyebrows in surprise and leans back in his chair. It was going to happen eventually. Something like this. A slave coming back to take revenge. He squints his eyes as he thinks about my words. I threw him a curveball and told him exactly what he wanted to hear. I'll be going now, don't be too scared of him, brother. He can't kill all of us. I give a sarcastic edge to my voice, and he closes his eyes as I leave. While the meeting has ended, and Sarah and Sally are closing in on the city. Haley has finished her conversation with Saul. She now has all the information needed to talk to the right people about the James family. Unknown to her, a bounty has been set on her. The only characteristic that is available about her is Emerald. Her magical beast. I leave the Guildhall with all the information that I need. Emerald is now sleeping in my backpack, and I'm starting to get hungry myself. The food stalls that I passed on the way to the Guildhall smelled so good, and I'm going to go to the first one I see. I start walking down the street, and I notice that lots more people are walking around. This part of the city is upper class, so the people are dressed better, and the scenery is better. It's not even close to the same state that the poor districts are in, and it makes me mad. I used to be one of those poor people. I know what that's like. Before Sarah got his fortune back on Earth, we were poorer than dirt. I'm pulled out of my thoughts at the familiar smell of bacon, eggs, pancakes, and syrup. My stomach growls as I take another deep whiff of the amazing food. There is movement in my backpack, and Emerald pops her head out, and drool is comically dripping from her mouth. I chuckle cause I'd do the same if I could generate that much saliva. Chapter 246, The City of James V. I see the main road up ahead through the trees. There is a line of people this far back. Sally is getting better now, and I think she's ready to enter the city. We both have our hoods up and making sure our identities aren't revealed. Not many people would be able to connect the sketches of me from a single glance. They'll have to have a clear memory of the sketch in their head and make connections between the sketches. I'm not saying it's impossible for someone to recognize me, but it ain't happening as long as I have this hood on. We step onto the cobblestone road and look towards the entrance of the city. I feel Sally hold on to me from my arm. We start walking down the road, and passing carts carry goods. There are groups of people too, and some adventurers here and there. They must be low level. The closer we make it to the gate separating the city and the road, the tighter Sally's grip gets on my arms. "I'm here, Sally, I'm not going anywhere," my whisper reaches her, and I hope that it eases her worry just a bit. We are now at the gate, and the guard captain is looking at us. Before he can say anything, I pull out a small bag of gold and toss it to him. He tosses it up and down in his hand, testing the weight. He steps aside, and we move through the gate. Sally slows down considerably, but she powers through, and we are now in the city of James. It's changed so much from 80 years ago. It used to be entirely slums with a single district for the rich. Now, look at it. Sally begins speaking about how it's changed since she was last here. The city has probably improved more on the outside but is even more rotten underneath it all. There is something that I want to do with Sally. Whenever we had the chance to eat food made by new people, aka players, we would. This city has player-run restaurants, and I'm hungry for some good food and not food from my inventory. Let's get something to eat, okay? I look at Sally, and her head is lowered, and she isn't acknowledging my words. Maybe it'll even be as good as the food we had in Zenith. I try again, and there is a little bit of a reaction. She nods her head slowly as she begins to warm up to the idea. As Sarah and Sally slowly walk through the streets looking for a good restaurant, the sister of Sarah is already digging into her food at the one she has selected. She and Emerald are chowing down food, and it's the same reason Sarah and Sally eat so much when they get the chance. There aren't many opportunities to have delicious food when you travel a lot. Most of what you eat is rations and dried meat. Not to mention the fact that this is human food, food from Earth. The best and most unhealthy food you will ever taste. I take another big bite of the juicy hamburger. Some of the juice falls out the bottom of the hamburger and onto the hand-cut fries. Lathering the fries. Normally I wouldn't be allowed to eat with Emerald at a table, but since this is a player restaurant, the rules are different here. If you have an animal companion, you can bring them in and select something from the special Beast Companion menu. That's how it is at this restaurant anyway. I notice NPCs looking at me from time to time. More specifically, Emerald. I'm getting tired of people trying to take Emerald or demand my body, or both. It's really bad in this kingdom. While it happened in other places, the kingdom of Pleer is filled with scumbags who think they can have whatever they want. I wonder if the capital and king himself is like this. Jasmine asked me to do this because she isn't strong enough to. Mind if I ask you a question? A man's voice rings out to my left, and I continue to eat. He takes my silence as permission, which I hate. I swear if it happens one more time, I'm killing every NPC in this restaurant. I don't care if I get kicked out, and I can't eat here anymore while I'm in the city of James. Were you in the rich district this morning? Now that's a question I wasn't expecting, but I've learned never to express emotion when being questioned. An incident in the past led to a bloody situation cause I couldn't keep my emotions off my face. My lack of reaction doesn't stop the man from talking. Cause there was a grisly slaughter in the streets. A group of men was butchered. It seems my act of self-preservation has gained some attention. I still don't react in the slightest, and this frustrates the man even further. You're probably wondering why I'm doing all this. There is a bounty on that person placed by the Barony, and the only descriptive feature about the perpetrator was a magical beast. A white tiger cub, to be precise. I finish the last bite of my hamburger and turn my head to look at the man. I lightly pet Emerald and remain completely calm and relaxed. My hood is still up, so he can't see my face. The silence in the restaurant has increased. I'm being looked at by NPCs. The bounty on my head must be pretty good if so many are willing to gun for me. I gently place Emerald in my backpack, and I stand up. Many in the restaurant do the same and draw any weapons they have. I'd hate to bloody up this place. Mind if we step outside? My even and level voice asks the ones interested in the bounty at the prospect, but one quickly jumps at me, trying to take advantage of the fact I don't have my weapon drawn yet. This causes a chain reaction. Many more jump with their swords and dagger ready to cut me. They all move in slow motion to me. My stats are higher than any NPC I've come across, and these idiots are no different. I pick up a French fry as they still move in slow motion, and I eat it. The first one to leap is starting to get close. I draw the heart's needle, and I cut all his limbs and head from his torso. The blood coming from the incident is moving in slow motion too. None of the attackers react to the bloody mess that I've just made cause they can perceive his death yet. I'm probably the fastest player in all of Gaia. I decide to speed myself up as they all move in slow motion. I zoom between each man and woman interested in killing me, and I chop them into multiple pieces as I did the first guy. I could just stab them all in the heart, but I want it to be gruesome, so all these hunters know not to mess with me. Once word gets out about this incident, no one will be interested in my supposed bounty. After I sliced up the last individual, I slow down to the point that all of them speed up to normal speed, and a bunch of body parts flies everywhere, along with blood and internal organs. Many NPCs that didn't try anything step back and leave in a panic. The only people left in the restaurant are players, who don't react to the bloody show at all. You couldn't just take it outside, could you? The player owner of the restaurant comes out the back and storms over to me, cussing and saying I'm never going to be welcomed here again. I can live with that. I've sent the message that needs sending. My face is still hidden, and my identity is safe. If they find me again, it still has to be my emerald. I walk out of the restaurant with some disappointment. I never finished my French fries, but that doesn't mean I can't eat somewhere else. I look to the left and right, both paths of the road, and there are plenty of player-owned restaurants around here. I just have to pick a new one, and I see one that I like. It's a little up the road, but the magnificent side draws in a lot of attention. Emerald pokes her head out of the backpack and mews. I'm guessing you're still hungry too. She mews again with a little bit of excitement. Time to go check out that restaurant. Once I'm done eating there, I'll have to get down to business. Chapter 247, The City of James VI. I can smell the freshly cooked food that was common on Earth. Sally is looking a little bit happier the closer we get to the source of the smells. I'm picking up multiple different things, and I look ahead and see multiple player-owned restaurants up ahead. They are all packed with players and NPCs. However, one is disturbingly empty, with players scrubbing the floors. We slowly walk up to it, and I take a look inside. There are puddles of blood everywhere and body parts that have yet to be picked up. Who's ever caused this has to be a pretty decent level and class grade. Sally looks inside also, and she doesn't really look sick looking at the bodies and blood. She recoils a little, but after traveling with me, you have to get used to being showered in blood from time to time. It's nice to see that she's adapted to that particular part of being with me. Unsurprisingly, many bloody footprints are leaving the restaurant. Different shoe sizes that each enters the road and fades. The most amusing of them is a set of smaller bloody shoe prints heading to the restaurant across the street. Someone was hungry enough to walk out of this establishment and into that one. I don't see this place opening until the gruesome scene is cleaned up. Before I can start walking to the restaurant across the street, I hear the marching of boots coming down the pathway to my right. I turn my head, knowing it's plenty of NPCs. Most are guards, and some are adventurers. Someone snitched, and now the city's guards are here to take care of things. They head straight for the restaurant across the street, the one where the bloody footprints lead to. You as curious as I am. I want to make sure Sally is comfortable watching something like this. She looks at the guards and thinks hard for a second. I'm sure the person who caused this isn't around anymore, but I don't see any reason not to watch. We might even learn something important, but I doubt it. I agree with Sally's assessment. Whoever caused this slaughter wouldn't stick around for long. If they did, they are either idiotic or strong enough to kill everyone hostile towards them. The guards stop in front of the restaurant, and an officer gets off his horse. They draw their swords and wait outside while the officer enters. While Sarah and Sally watch the ongoing spectacle, Sally's assessment was right. Haley didn't stick around to eat on the spot. She ordered a to-go and is no longer in the area. Haley is heading to a place in the city. It's an abandoned wool mill. However, it's a hidden entrance to the black market. She is following the information that Saul gave her, and now that she knows she has a bounty on her head, she knows it will be incredibly hard to move towards her goal. Jasmine's wish for the destruction of the slave market in the city of James and the death of the James family is the only thing on Haley's mind. My plans have been ruined. Well, not completely ruined. It's going to be hard to complete my mission here now that I'm a wanted woman. I don't want to have to cut my way through hundreds of people, but I will if I have to. I'm pretty sure that what happened in the restaurant has spread like wildfire. It'll have two effects, and they both counteract each other. My identity is safe for now, but people will know it's me whenever Emerald comes out of the backpack. You sure are a bundle of trouble, aren't you? I speak just loud enough for Emerald to hear me, and I get a mew in response. She pops her head out of the backpack and yawns. She had plenty of food, so she is probably feeling tired right now. I have no problems with her coming out right now. There is barely anyone around in this part of the city. It's mostly abandoned or under reconstruction. Buildings are falling apart from decay, and others with magical construction equipment by them are getting rebuilt or refurbished. This must be the oldest and emptiest part of the city. I look towards the massive abandoned wool mill and think about what Saul has told me. It's a haunting sight. To see a part of a city nearly abandoned and crumbling to pieces. Not a sign of human or humanoid life. It reminds me of the broken down LA that I was in when we were first brought to the Ancients' world. The only thing this place is lacking is the forests and vegetation consuming parts of the city. I want to return to the player continent one day. It's largely unexplored and abandoned. Most players have returned to their original continents. Some have stayed behind to try and rebuild, and that's interesting. I can see the appeal of clinging onto a piece of earth, a part of the lives we once had, but if you don't evolve and adapt, you will perish. The ones that have stayed on the player continent will be severely lacking when they see the players that have returned their original continents. I'm pulled out of my thoughts by the sound of thunder. I look towards the direction, and a massive storm is rolling in. This is going to be the first time I've experienced a storm on Gaia. I'd say there is only an hour or so until it hits the city. As I continue walking, a world announcement goes off. Worldwide announcement, all mass gatherings of players are going to be attacked in 1 hour. Cities, capitals, and towns with players will be caught in a storm as monsters from unknown origins begin attacking. These are not monsters from the monster horde that the church is at war with. These are a new and strong enemy, exclusively hunting players. The stronger you are as a player, the bigger the monster forces will be that are coming after you. As all the players scattered around Gaia listen to the announcement, Angelus is sitting in a private dimension. It's decorated to look just like a normal room from Earth. Angelus hasn't interacted with players in a very long time, not in this way. The last time was when they were all on the player continent, and Sarah stopped the endless hordes of monsters by defeating an avatar of a great demon. Now the time has come to test the wills and new powers of the players again. Many have already made it to level 100, so these battles are going to be insane. I sip my tea as I see the biggest of the storms roll towards the city of James. Sarah is there, with his elven companion. The size of that monster horde is going to kill many players. They'll respawn only to die again. The players will have to defeat the boss of the horde coming towards their city. Their players not gathered in large groups don't have to worry about anything since they aren't getting attacked. These monsters' only priority will be to find players and kill them. The weaker monsters will go after the weaker players, and the strong players will attract strong monsters. It doesn't help the city of James since T.A.W is there as well. It has caused the storm and monsters under it to be considerably stronger. A divine class wielder in Sarah and a legendary class user in Haley will be attracting the strongest of the monsters to their locations. The cities and locations that these attacks are occurring at will have mass damage, and some NPCs will be killed as a result of it. However, the Almighty Father has assured me that this test is necessary. While the thought crossed my mind many times, it was the Almighty Father who asked me to do this for the players. The gods in Overworld have been quiet, planning for the old gods to start their war. You have no idea what you've unleashed. I sip on my tea again after I say those words. When Sarah got his divine mana aura, he unleashed the old gods, and that's why they are returning. The divine mana aura that he has now was the original lock and key for their prison, and they gain strength every passing day now that they are free. The coming war isn't here yet, and won't be for a while. However, it is coming. The players will play an important role in this war, and so are Sarah and his family. Players weren't given immortality for no reason at all. The soldiers needed for defeating the old gods need to be immortal because the old gods' forces will be endless. Chapter 248, The Coming Slaughter. As the announcement repeats, many players begin to stand up and get ready around me. Sally and I have just sat down for our food too. Sally looks up from her plate and stares at me, waiting for me to explain the plan of action. Let's finish eating our food. We have a little under an hour before whatever happening happens. Before Sally can respond, thunder rumbles the building. The giant storm outside is getting closer and closer. I don't know why it's going to storm as the monsters attack, but some things happen that can't be explained. The hamburger and French fries are pretty good, but the improvement of Sally's mood has stopped. All due to this test. That's the best explanation I can come up with. The same thing happened on the player continent. Well, something very similar. The last time this happened, I was alone, and I fought many thousands in a raging storm. I'm going to be surrounded by players and people this time around. This means I can't use my full power. If I do, many NPCs will die in the process. A handicap, in a way. My heart skips a beat in a small panic. The monsters I fought back on the player continent were leveled to match me. I'm betting the same thing will happen here. I slowly lift my head and look at Sally. She is an NPC. If she dies, she won't come back. I need to get her somewhere safe. We need to leave. Now. She'll be at serious risk if I have her with me. The monsters won't target her if she isn't by me, but if she is, it puts her at great risk. She looks at me in worry since this is the first time I've acted like this in front of her. I don't wait for a response. I grab her wrist and drag her from the table and outside. What's wrong, Sarah? She's much more worried now. I pick her up in my arms, and I leap on top of the buildings. I can't toggle my wings on. I don't want our cover blown after all this is over. I leap from rooftop to rooftop, and every time I jump, I look at the storm. It has heavy rainfall and thunder. The most mesmerizing is the amount of lightning. Where are we going? I have to leave her somewhere a safe distance from the city once the fighting is over. I'll come and get her. I haven't responded to any of her questions yet, and I'm not going to until I take her to a safe place. Sally is strong enough to handle monsters and people within her level range, but the monsters coming to attack the players everywhere aren't something she is ready for. She needs more strength if she's going to fight beasts of this caliber. A few buildings later, and I'm leaping over the way. The wind blows hard at the city of James. The storm is getting closer. We still have plenty of time, but I'm not risking Sally's life. Not here, not in the place that caused her hell. I land hard on the ground with her in my hands, and a large indent appears. I leap from the small crater and start leaping through the forest, heading to some hills a few miles out from the city. The storm cloud looking like old photos on Earth's internet. I think they're called supercells. When the pollution on Earth got to a certain point, supercells could no longer form. This is the first time I've seen what an actual supercell looks like in person. Not from old pictures on the internet. We are quickly approaching the hills, and I start to slow down. Once at the top of one of the hills and a safe distance away from the storm's path and the city, I set Sally down. You need to stay here and wait for my return. The fight in the city and surrounding area isn't something you are strong enough for yet. The monsters coming are likely near the 100s in level. The strongest one matching my level. You're still only level 79. Sally has a look of worry, not for her safety, but mine. I turn to head back to the city and wait for the onslaught, but before I can start moving, I feel her hug my back. She knows I'll revive if I'm killed since I'm a new person, but that doesn't stop her. Please don't get hurt. I can't stand the thought of. I place my hand on top of hers at the are locked together on my chest since she is holding me from behind. She hugs me for a little while longer and lets me go. I turn my head and nod at her. I'm not going to die. I'm not going to get hurt. I know this from the sheer value of my stats alone. My health ranges in the tens of billions, and so does my mana. Nothing is going to hurt me. My power is too much to handle for these creatures. Slayer, Zirn, LVL.190. EXP, 1/100%. Title, The Son of Archangel Michael, Hidden, +3 more. Stats. Strength, 7095 Endurance, 7045 Dexterity, 7215 Speed, 8240 Focus, 19660. Mana Aura Control, 5/100%. Health, 56,560,000/56,560,000,000 Mana, 196,600,000/196,600,000,000. Stat points, 0 Armor rating, 500. Inventory. Passive perks. Inheritor of the Sword, Son of Heaven, Slayer of Evil, Holy Willow Trees, Savior, Finder of Legends, the Divine who has legend destined for greatness, Dungeon Diver and Overachiever. Active skills. Heaven's Light LVL.59325/5900 protected by Heaven LVL.59225/5900/LVL.774600/130000 Parry LVL.5380/5300 Double Strike /A King Slayer /A Raging Machine /A Winged Glory Angelic Flight Divine Pressure Exertion Divinity Pulse Controlled Fun. This will be the first time I get to check out the new damage output for my active skills. It's going to be a bloodbath, but not for the players. I'm leaping through the forest and making my way back to the city. I can see players leaving the entrance and heading for the wall closest to the storm. They are likely going to intercept them, putting the NPCs at less of a risk. The number of players that are doing this is small. More players are waiting inside of the city than outside. Monsters aren't going to hunt me exclusively. Only the strongest ones will come after me. I make a slight adjustment to my path and decide to join the players waiting outside near the wall closest to the storm. After a minute or so, I land nearby and exit the woods to the front line. You sure you want to be up here, kid? A taller man to my left begins to speak. He's a player and around 6'5". He looks like a person in his mid-20s like most players, but I can tell by the way he carries himself he's much older than that. I lightly nod my head. I don't want to talk. My hood is still up, so he won't be able to see my face. I won't be able to use my wings for the coming fights, and they'd come in handy. A weapon has to be a legendary grade or higher to even cause damage to my golden wings. Monsters don't carry legendary grade weapons. As I'm watching the storm creep its way over to the city, the flashes of lightning illuminate the incoming enemies. They are aquatic-looking creatures, explains the rain. Wonder why it's specifically aquatic-looking creatures. The storm is still a mile or two out, but droplets of rain are already hitting my face. I pull up my player interface a final time and see a message from the system. System message: these monsters are going to increase mastery over mana aura since they are a test for the players and will make them a bit stronger, which includes you. Kill as many as you can, weak or strong. You might get enough to raise your mana control by 1% or 2. How about that? These are a test for us. I'm guessing the system AI has set this up. If not the AI, then the Almighty Father is the one who did so. I stop looking at the message, and I look around to see players staring at the air with a focus. They are looking at their messages too. Many of them have an excited or eager look on their face, and I'd understand that. They are going to get big boosts in power. I, on the other hand, will have massive amounts. Even a single % increase to my mana aura control and my health and mana will increase by several billions. Chapter 249, An Unexpected Conversation. While Sarah waits by the wall with the other few brave players, there is the situation with his sister. Haley is having an internal debate right now, one that many players are going through themselves. Haley is plenty strong enough to deal with monsters that'll come after her. She is a legendary class wielder, after all. With the storm moving in, she has a decision to make. Stay in the city for any monsters that come after her, or fight outside the city, not jeopardizing damage. It's a dilemma that she hasn't had before. As I heard from the announcements earlier and the message from the system in my inbox, I'll be having powerful creatures come after me. Not only am I endangering the innocent lives that are here in the city of James, but I'm also putting Emerald at risk. If she's with me, there's a good chance she could get hurt. My main priority is keeping Emerald safe. If any NPC lives are lost in the battles between monsters and players happen, then it's something I'll live with. I hear the thunder rumble, and a small shake goes through my body. The storm and lightning would be beautiful if not for the looming threat of battle. I've encountered storms in my trips, but none of them have been filled with monsters. The fact this is a test bothers me too. What are we being tested for? The players are already helping fight in wars. We are adjusting to a society that we are unfamiliar with. The first trip alone without my family or Emerald was rough on me. There were so many times I'd reach for my pocket to see if I could text them on my phone, only to realize over and over I no longer have a phone. I feel movement inside my backpack, and Emerald pops her head out to look towards the coming storm. Her ears curl back, and she growls in the direction of the storm. Emerald can sense when the monsters of Gaia are around. As a magical beast of a legacy grade, she has many interesting abilities, even as a cub. However, none of them are combative at this moment since she's still a cub. She's been my closest friend ever since I found her a little after getting battle mined. She's weak right now, but once she's done growing, she'll be unstoppable. Well, unstoppable may be an over-exaggeration, but she'll be damn powerful. She is still growling towards the storm and making a fuss. I pull her out of the backpack and let her sit on my shoulder. I jump onto a building and continue hopping around until I reach the wall. I look over into the storm-covered forest and see a writhing swarm of aquatic monsters. I look down, and I see a group of players that want to fight outside the city. I feel droplets of rain hit my face and armor from time to time, indicating the storm isn't that far away. We still have about 40 to 45 minutes until the storm is over the city, and the monsters will be attacking when the storm is over the city. It's okay, Emerald will be okay, I'll not let anything happen to you. I gently rub her head as she growls at the storm. The monsters are ranging in high numbers. The best estimate is between 150,000 and 300,000. I sigh and decide that I'll fight between the city and the outside lands. Basically, I'll be fighting on this wall. I'll do my best to keep monsters out from where I'm located, but they'll get in no matter what I do. As Haley waits for the monsters to come, unknown to her, her brother is with the group of players she looked at while standing on top of the wall. Sarah is silently waiting for the monsters to arrive, waiting for the 40 or so minutes to be up. The time seems to move slower and slower, and it's making all the players anxious and jumpy in the small group of players. The group hasn't received any new arrivals, which means out of the potential million players in the city of James, only this handful of 15 or so are willing to fight outside the confines of the city. My mind is at ease knowing Sally will be away from the battle and is safe. I've been going over possible ways to hide my full capabilities. When my skills activate, they are bright and showy. I've concluded that I can only use the witness. It'll kill any monster I fight in the coming battle, but the only skills I'll be able to use are slash and double strike since they aren't showy and don't give any bright light off. You've been awfully quiet, kid. You're starting to worry me. The player that spoke to me earlier decides to talk. I'm not nervous, but I can see how my strange silence can be interpreted as such. There are small conversations between the players in our small group, talking about plans and helping each other. If any of the monsters coming after me get a misdirected hit on one of them, they're toast. You should worry about yourself. Many of the stronger players are on their own in this battle. Once the monsters after me begin their attacks, I'll have to break away from the group and fight them a distance off. Enough as to not put them in harm's way. It'll be nice not to be the sole and entire focus of a huge monster force this time around. The last time I fought like this, I was on my own, and it took me a full day to heal. With my current abilities, I'm nothing like I was when that happened. My health alone probably won't fall under 0.1%. Same for my mana. I'd be able to kill the entire monster horde with Divinity Pulse, but I'd be killing every NPC permanently, and every player would lose a level. Sally isn't out of range of the skill too. I hope to have the chance to use the skill one day. The player beside me sighs and relaxes against his giant sword as the rain slowly gets heavier. We players got it too easy. We don't have to worry about permadeath. It's the NPCs that suffer, and they suffer greatly because of us. Just take this event, for example. I don't know why this man wants to have a deep conversation with me about the topic of players interfering in the normal for the NPCs. If anything, he should be focusing on the upcoming fight, worrying about losing a level if he'll die. He is an older man in a young mid-20s version of himself. So I can see the desire to talk and prattle on as most people do as they get older. I can entertain a conversation with the man. It might pass the time faster. I haven't met a player who wanted to talk to a stranger so much. He grins slightly, knowing that I know he's older than he looks. Your points are right, and no one will deny them, but we are on our own. More than half of humanity has been wiped out in the transition here. There are going to be problems after such an event. I watch a pained expression appear on his face. He must have lost a lot of loved ones in the event that brought us here. The Coliseum, that's what players call it, at least. Did you lose anyone? He asks me rather coldly, and he has probably deduced if I'm so open to talking about it, I either didn't lose anyone or didn't have anyone to lose. I shake my head in an indication that I didn't lose anyone important to me. One of the lucky ones. He sounds hollow now and isn't interested in talking. The conversation didn't last as long as I thought, and now there is an awkward tension. I have no desire to do anything. Making him feel better isn't my job. You know, I'd give anything to have my family back, to see their faces, to talk to them, to be around them. He begins to choke a little at the end. What am I? A therapist? I still stare into the storm and see the monsters, and the rain has soaked my clothes. It's done the same to the rest of the players around me. You should cherish your family, kid, you never know when you might lose them. He decides to pull his sword out of the ground and go stand next to some other players after that. I don't blame him. Chapter 250, Rivers of Blood. As the players are waiting for the ensuing battle, NPCs are in a panic. The announcement they heard from the church is causing unrest all over Gaia. Anywhere there's a large population of players is going to be attacked in the next 30 or so minutes. To the NPCs, the new people are to blame for the coming destruction, aka the players. It's not a false claim from the NPCs. They have a right to think that. After all, cities and towns are about to be attacked because of the players. They aren't specifically after the NPCs, but that doesn't put them in any less danger. My many brothers are in a panic. The large storm approaching the city will cause much destruction. Caden, my oldest brother, is trying to get a hold of me via magic. I'm in a safe place from the city right now, and I say let it get destroyed. Not only will that cause problems for the illegal activities going on, it'll take money out of all my brother's pockets. I don't invest in the city, while many would claim it's a safe venture. I don't want my name and reputation attached to the slave trade going on in the black market here. I have zero risks allowing this to happen. Yeah, some innocent people may die, and I can deem that a worthy sacrifice for slowing down or halting business entirely for my brothers. For a time at least, cause they'll get repairs done fast. Kelly. It seems Caden has gotten tired of my silence and has decided to visit me personally. The doors swing open, and he barges into my office. We need your help. You're the only one without assets invested in the city. Give us access to your funds. I keep a calm and neutral expression as he makes it to my desk and slams on it with his hands. I lean back in my chair, letting Caden seethe in anger further. My brothers have no power or authority to demand anything from me. Caden, my dear idiot brother. His expression morphs into a face of surprise and shock. I've rarely spoken to any of my brothers like this. Let alone the oldest. The current situation you find yourselves in is your responsibility. And yours alone. I suggest once the damages are tallied after the coming battle between the new people and the monsters, you ask the king for help. His mouth forms into a scowl. He is struggling really hard to keep his composure. What I say is completely fair, and he can't do anything about it. I don't keep my money in the banks controlled by my brothers. I keep it hidden on my estate. The city of James is just as much your responsibility as ours, dear sister. When the people find out about this, they'll forsake you. I highly doubt that. I'm the only member of the James family that isn't totally and completely feared. People actually respect and talk to me when I walk the streets. This situation is turning more and more in my favor. If the coming fight between the new people and the monsters causes significant damage, I can use that to my advantage and take out my brothers. Politically take them out. They'll lose lots of money and demand that people pay for it. That'll cause serious unrest that I can use once I set my plans in motion. Caden, the people will be so busy blaming the brothers that they won't even consider me. After all, you and the rest of the boys have invested heavily in a lot of businesses. They'll be crawling you when it's all over. There is no situation where they come out on top. My victory over them is almost secure. The only piece of the puzzle I'm needing is Slayer Zirn. If he truly is coming here or is already here, then convincing him will secure my usurpation of the barony, while at the same time killing all my evil and scum brothers. The rest of the family won't forget this, Kelly. You'll suffer consequences. I scoff as he stands up straight and exits the room. This is a win for me, and not only are my brothers distracted by many different things. I've received a letter from the King of Zenith. After I sent letters to the capital and to the king in Zenith about my concerns with Slayer Zirn coming here since he's traveling with a female elf that used to be a slave here. I haven't gotten word from my king yet, but Jackson was kind enough to inform me of a way to get Slayer Zirn's cooperation if he is here. It turns out that Slayer Zirn is a very hard man to read and also very intelligent. As long as I don't approach him as a threat and make my allegiances obvious to him, he won't do anything to me. He might even help me once I tell him my plan. I stand up and walk over to my window that has a view of the city in the distance. The current place I'm at is 1.5 miles out. It has a wonderful view of the city. I watch the storm move closer. I can see movement and monsters in the rain. There have to be hundreds of thousands. My butler walks in and places some tea on my desk. Are you sure it's wise to defy your brothers openly? After all, the planning you've done, doesn't this risk it? He brings up points that I've considered. They can't stop what is to come. The evil and lies they've wrought are coming back to haunt them, and I'll take great pleasure in being the one to deliver that to them. It's nothing we need to be concerned about at this point. My father's slave empire in the city of James is going to fall soon. With it, my brothers, the ones who keep the tradition. All we need to do is place the parts we need to, move pieces when they need to be moved. Their destruction is guaranteed at this point. My butler takes his monocle off and clears it with his napkin. As Kelly James watches the coming storm slowly make its way towards the city, many players make final preparations for the battle. Most shops have closed around the city, and NPCs are refusing any requests from players that are still open. The players waiting outside the city by the wall are counting the seconds in their heads. All of them are nervous and eager, except for one. Sarah is sitting on a stump as the water pours down. The edge of the storm has increased in rainfall and is soaking the players close to it. The rain feels good, better than the last time I was in a situation like this. The falling water is clean and isn't polluted in the slightest. I look at the dark approaching supercell, and I appreciate how beautiful it is. The rain falls on my face, and I take a deep breath, smelling the water as it's a little warm. Rayargh. Many monsters are screeching in the distance, voicing their desire for blood and battle, locked behind the time slowly counting down. There'll be a mighty flood once they descend upon us. So many thousands of monsters will stain the lands red and make the rivers flow with crimson. Lightning flashes and thunder shakes through my body, a sensation I have only felt in my last battle against the monsters like this. A sensation I never experienced on Earth, one that I wish I could. They sure are getting rowdy out there. Two players are talking behind me, and they are also watching the storm. Witnessing the monsters writhe and screech at the thought of getting their hands on us. One player sighs and unsheathes his weapon. I hope that I can get enough EXP to reach 20% mana control. I got it a few weeks ago, and the amount of time it takes to raise it is annoying. I'm only at 13% right now. I feel personally attacked by the topic, but in the end, I'm lucky enough that this event might raise my mana control by 1%. These guys probably have weak mana auras and will gain more than 7% control. At least he will. By the way, did you ever get to find out about that new magical device that lets you connect with players around Gaia? Well, isn't that interesting? I had no idea something like that was being worked on. Rumor has it that it was made by JNX since they are still alive in this world. This is very interesting. I haven't heard any news about JNX in a long time. They must be trying to make up for their wrongs in some way.